Dear friends, brothers and sisters in Christ, in today's liturgy, we get inspiration from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 1 to 32, and we celebrate the fourth Sunday of Lent, Yasi de Laetare Sunday. It's a Sunday which invites us to anticipate the joy that is coming at Easter. We have come a long way with prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, and the Lord is inviting us to taste a bit of that joy that He is going to bring, that new life that is going to bring with His resurrection, inviting us to the resurrection for others, to be life for others. And so we get inspiration also from the parable that we hear in today's gospel. It is the parable of the prodigal son and the generous father. Basically, there are three personalities involved here. There is the firstborn, who is called the prodigal son, the secondborn, who is the elder son, and of course the father, who is generous and who is so abundant. His love, his mercy, his forgiveness overflows for you and me, for all of us. This could be our story too. It's a story of two brothers. One ended up being a winner and another lost. That is the elder one who lost everything because he ended up being angry, envious, and jealousy. And that is why he lost everything. And now, this is what we are reflecting on, dear friends. Two brothers, two endings. It took only one decision to define their lives. One, the young one, made the right decision of coming to his senses and coming back to the father, while the second one made the wrong decision of running away from the father, though at first he was with the father. Yes, I use the expression running away from the father because at the end of the story, the elder one is the one who runs away. He refuses to enter the father's house. He refuses to feast. It's like, as we call it today's terms, he's a killer joy. One who kills joy. Let us briefly analyze the story. It's the young son who asks for his inheritance, his gifts from the father. Even before the father was still alive, but he asks for his inheritance. And he goes out. He runs away from the home. The younger one asks for inheritance. And it's like God was giving us many gifts. And many times we go with those gifts. How do we use those gifts? So the young son goes around and the father is generous. He gives him freedom and he gives him everything, and he goes away with what he asks for. The young son decides to leave his home, his family, his father, so that he can live his life the way he wanted. Immorally, luxuriously, sinfully, arrogantly, proudly, negatively, wrongly. And on the other hand, we see the elder son who lived his life well. He was at home, obedient to the father, following the rules, the commandments. He was there doing the best he can. We could say even morally he was okay. But what happens at the end of the parable is surprising because both of them made a decision. Dear friends, we have a lot to learn here, that in our life, the beginning is important, the ending is important, but also the continuation of every second, every day is important, because we don't know the time that the Lord can invite us back home. How will He find my soul, my heart? And so we are reflecting on the ending of this elder brother as well. As the young, both of them made a decision that impacted their lives, that changed their lives. The prodigal son, having gone around with prostitutes, with with a lot of doing a lot of bad things outside there, squandering the money and using a lot of things and living his life in a very disorganized way, ends up eating the pig's food. Imagine they were Jews. To eat a pig is the lowest job that could happen. First of all, a Jew is not supposed even to rear pigs, but he ends up even eating not even the usual food, but the food of the pigs, and yet he's coming from a noble family, and now he has squandered everything and there's nothing remaining, and he now examines his conscience. He stops a bit and he examines his conscience. He flashes into himself and he reflects, makes an examination of conscience, and comes back to his senses and says, I have to return to my father. I have to tell him that I'm no longer even worthy to be called his son. Let him treat me even as one of the workers. I don't mind. Meaning he had really realized the need to come back home, to ask for forgiveness and reconciliation with God, with others, and himself. And that is what Lent is all about. And so he returns home. He comes to his senses and returns home. And this is what we learn also, that we have to return home. And the best way to return home is to embrace a beautiful sacrament of reconciliation, of confession, where we make peace with God, with others, and with self, so that we can live happily every second. And as this young son is coming back to the father sees him from afar and he runs, he embraces him. And the son begins to say, I'm not worthy, I'm sorry. The father said, you don't need even to say that. The father just rejoices for the return of the son, and invites a banquet. They prepare the best banquet. They put on the good robe, which is putting on back his dignity, which he had lost as a son of the father. And there is a feast, there is celebration. When we return to God, there is celebration, there is a feast, and we are invited to forgive others the way God forgives us as we return to him. We are invited to reconcile, to return to ourselves, and to return to others, to return to God, the way this firstborn son, the prodigal son, does. He returns home. But what happens to the second son? The second son, out of jealous, of anger, feeling that, seeing that the son who had received inheritance has come back and they are making feast, he is uneasy and he refuses even to enter the father's house. When we are full of jealousy and anger, and a lot of bitterness in us, a lot of revenge in us, we do not enjoy being at home. We distance ourselves from the father and from ourselves and from the people who love us. We have to really struggle to kill the anger, to kill the jealousy, to kill all those bitterness in us. And in that case, we'll be close to the Father and we'll be close to ourselves and others as well. The elder son, because of his envy, pride, anger, excluded himself from the banquet, from the celebration, from the feast. Let's remember, dear friends, that far from God we smell like pigs. And that's what we are invited to return, to be in the Father's feast and celebration, to share this festive life of goodness with all. And so we see these two kind of brothers are like the two people we hear in today's parable of the Pharisees and scribes complain that Jesus is welcoming sinners and eating with them. He's welcoming tax collectors and mixing with them, because eating is a sign of intimacy, of relationship, of friendship. So how can Jesus welcome the people who are sinful, those who are far away, who are like the prodigal son? How can Jesus welcome them? So the Pharisees were like the second-born son, who were pretending to be righteous, whereas the sinners here we see are the first son, prodigal son, who acknowledge their weaknesses and come to meet Jesus. How do we feel when we see others coming to join into our church, praying with us, especially the sinners? Do we isolate them and look at them and they are not like us? Or we welcome them and help them to change? The tax collectors and sinners were like the prodigal son, and they realized that they needed change. They needed to return to the Lord and to return to the Father, to return home, to return to themselves. And they confessed, and they knew that being with Jesus, being with the good news, will change their lives. And that is what made them celebrate. That's what makes us celebrate when we return to the Lord and return to ourselves. When these tax collectors and sinners came to their senses, they came to Jesus and they experienced healing. They were made whole, healthy, and happy again, because Jesus, he welcomes all of us and eats with us in his own body and his own blood. He shares life with us so that we too can share life and forgiveness and peace with others as well. We learn a lot from today's parable, that just one decision can have a tremendous impact in my life forever, in eternity, for eternity. Just one good decision will make me inherit heaven, and a bad decision will make me, unfortunately, fall into hell. The decision that I have made. Which decision do you make every day, every second? Of course, God's ways are not our ways. How come someone who was living a good life loses it at the end because of his pride and anger, and the way he ends badly because he has chosen to be proud, angry, jealous? And whereas somebody who was living a very sinful life, he comes to his senses and God receives him or her. God's ways are not our ways. Of course, one would say, is it fair that somebody who lived a bad life changes and is received in heaven, and whereas the one who considered himself holy, because he has ended badly, he goes into hell? That is something we have to be careful about. The way we live our life at the beginning is important, and the way we end our life is important, just as the continuation is important. But the most important thing also to keep in mind is that it is the elder son himself who chose not to enter the father's home to feast, to celebrate, to have the banquet. It is not the father who refused to have the elder son. Actually, the father even came out to embrace the child and invite him in, to invite him to confess, invite him to make peace with all, invite him to celebrate. But the son was full of himself and chose to remain outside, saying, I have been with you, serving you all the time, and you never gave me even anything to eat with, not even a goat to eat with my friends. And then the father says, my son, everything I have is yours. Was it not good that this son of yours who was lost and now is found is a great reason for us to rejoice? He was lost and now is found, and this is the reason for us to feast. When a sinner repents and returns to God, it's a great feast for God, but also for all of us. Let's make this world a festive moment, because the Lord wants us festive, celebrative, people who are joyful, because a Christian is a person who is a carrier of good news. We can do that when we are reconciled, when we have made peace, when we have confessed, and we are at peace with God, with others, and with ourselves. Let's not be like the elder son who refuses to embrace forgiveness, who refuses to embrace the feast, the celebration, who refuses to enter the Father's house, who refuses to enter into the communion, into the bond of God and the communion with others. Remember, God welcomes all, forgives all, and loves all, and invites us to welcome all, forgive all, and love all as they are. All are welcome to the joy, but the decision belongs to you and me. Greetings from Jerusalem.